What's up guys, Josh Mosiman here. We're out at Glen Helen Raceway getting ready to ride the new 2020 Husqvarna FC250. So it's going to be a good day. We're excited to get out on this bike. Quite a few updates have been made. It got a lot of the same updates as the Husqvarna FC450 and 350. One of the major updates being the suspension. Husqvarna went with a new suspension setting that is aimed towards pleasing a wider range of riders and skill levels and weights. So with that being said, the valving is softer from the middle all the way to the bottom of the stroke. They added 20 cc's of oil just to lessen bottoming and work also with the new shock setting that's a little bit softer as well. They softened the suspension up, like I said, to meet the needs of a wider range of riders, but also to work with the stiffer frame that riders were complaining about last year on the new 2019 model. With the updates to the valving and the oil and the forks, Husqvarna recommends the pressure in the air forks to be set to 10.4 bar. And then the compression side of the fork, the spring side, got a new adjuster on the top of the fork, so it's supposed to make it a little bit easier to tell when you're adding compression or taking away compression. They changed it from a 3-prong compression adjuster to a 2-prong one. It's pretty cool when you look at it at first, but it's kind of hard to get at once you start messing with it. So it's an update, but we're not really sure if it's better yet, but we'll have to try it out some more. Now let's get into the power conversation on this FC250. The maps are the same as they were last year. Map 1 is the standard, I would say, stock map, where map 2 is more aggressive. It also has traction control like it had previously and launch control. The gearing is the same as it was last year with a 14 countershaft sprocket and a 51 tooth rear sprocket. We're not really sure why Husqvarna did this. In 2017, they went from a 1350 to a 1451. It made it a little bit harder to come out of the corners with that. It's definitely good for a pro level rider, somebody who's really riding at the top of the power band and high in the RPMs, but for the average rider, you might want to add a tooth on the rear sprocket or change your countershaft sprocket from a 14 back down to a 13. Another update for the FC250 for 2020 is the new ventilated air box cover. We love it. We've been asking for it for years, and finally in 2020 we got it. We're pretty stoked about it. It doesn't come on the bike, but it comes with the bike. So, you know, when you got your owner's manual and all the little things that KTM and Husqvarna give you with their bike, it'll also come with a nice ventilated air box cover. We're excited to try it out. We're going to try it out back to back to see if we can notice a huge difference. We're thinking that there will be, because we've had to actually ride the bikes without the airbox cover before, or just put big holes in the airbox cover to really feel the difference. And with that, you get more power on the bottom and all the way through the power band. Unlike the 450 and 350, the 250 muffler doesn't have the ice cream cone restrictor inside, so we really like it. And we've actually taken our muffler from the 250 and used it on our 350 and 450, and they've both ran better. So we like that about this bike. The engine's the same as it was last year, and we're not complaining. It's a solid engine. The 2019 FC250 placed 3rd in our 250 shootout last year. It did pretty well, but with the new ventilated air box cover and new suspension settings, we're excited to see where it stacks up against the rest of the 2020 models. So hang in there, we're about to gear up and head out onto the track. Stay tuned to the end of this video to hear our first impressions on the new 2020 Husqvarna FC250. Alright guys, we just got done riding the 2020 Husqvarna FC250 and we really enjoyed it. This bike has a few updates and you can definitely notice them. We were very thankful that Husqvarna added or at least gave us the option to have a ventilated air box cover. With that being said, we tested it back to back just to make sure, and our predictions were right. Definitely a lot more bottom end and just overall power all the way through with more air going through the air filter. The new 2020 Husqvarna 450 and 350s both got an extra tooth on the rear sprocket while they left the 250 the same. We're not really sure, I'm not really sure. Out of all the bikes, it felt like the 250 needed the tooth more than the rest. So after riding the Husqvarna 450 and then the 350, when I got on this 250, it was definitely noticeable that it was a 250. It took me a few laps to remember how to ride one of these things, and it was slow off the bottom, but it really liked it once you got into the meat of the power band and once you got high up in the RPMs. Letting the bike run all the way up into the RPMs real high, and that's where it likes to be ran. I also really like the sound of the muffler on this thing because it doesn't have the ice cream cone restrictor like the 350 and the 450, this bike sounds pretty cool for a stock bike. So I really like that. That was a bonus for me on the FC250. We went back and forth between map 1 and map 2. Map 1 is, Husqvarna's stock map, while map 2 is supposed to be a little more aggressive. Definitely rode it in the aggressive setting just because it was so tough to get out of the corners, and because it's a stock 250, you want everything you can get to get out of the corners and get up these steep Glen Helen hills. So the WP suspension on the FC250 got similar updates as the 350 and 450. Husqvarna went with a new setting that was more tailored to a wide range of skill levels and weights. We said this before and we'll say it again, it's good. It's softer than normal, and you can definitely feel it, but it's still good, and it has great adjustability that makes it work well for pro level riders all the way down to novices and vet riders as well. For me personally, I like the suspension stiffer. I just got done racing Supercross and AMA Outdoor Nationals for the last couple of years as a pro. I come into the corners a little bit faster than some of our test riders, and that makes me want stiffer suspension, but we do have a lot of vet test riders, a lot of novice levels, and man, we just like to let anybody ride our bikes to get their feedback. So that's one of the things that I like about the WP setup on this new Husqvarna 2020 line. I enjoyed stiffer suspension today, but I didn't need it as bad as I did on the 450 and the 350. But I didn't have to go as far as I did on the 450 and the 350. Because on the 450 you have so much torque coming out of the corners, you're hitting the bumps a little bit harder, and it's just a little bit heavier. I wanted stiffer suspension to hold me up, but on the 250, because it's a little bit lighter, but also has a lighter feel, not as much power going to the ground, I didn't have to stiffen it as much as I did on the 350 and the 450 models. So the new settings that WP used on these Husqvarna models worked actually better for me on the 250 than they did even on the 350 and 450. I was able to track through the corners a lot better than I expected. So after spending time on the KTM and Husqvarna back-to-back, we did notice that the shrouds have a little more contact area on the Husqvarnas as compared to the KTMs. Some riders have said that the Husqvarnas are a little bit wider, but I didn't notice it, and I really enjoyed the extra contact patch on the shrouds of the Husqvarna. And we can't complain about the brakes. The Brembo brakes are awesome, front and rear. With the Magura clutch, it felt pretty good today. It doesn't have the same feeling as the Brembo. I would say it's a little bit harder to really feel when the clutch engages on the Magura, but still wasn't bad. Another thing that we're going to keep our eye on as we take this bike to local practice tracks, as we race it each weekend and put a lot more hours on it, we're going to keep our eye on the Magura clutch slave cylinder. Husqvarna's had issues with the Magura clutch slave cylinder in the past, and we're hoping that they fixed it for the 2020 model. We're getting ready to put a lot more time on this bike. The first impressions are a thumbs up. We really enjoyed it today. So to get more details on this bike, check out the full test and an upcoming issue of Motocross Action magazine. And to stay up to date on the latest news, reviews, and bikes that we've tested, check out motocrossactionmag.com. Us over here at Motocross Action have been busy testing the latest 2020 models. If you haven't had a chance to check out our latest videos, here's your chance to catch up. And make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be the first to know about MXA's latest video releases.